My story begins with a love that seemed unshakable. 3 years ago, I met Sophia at a party hosted by mutual friends. That night, the connection was instant, and soon we became inseparable. Sophia had a sparkle in her eyes that captivated me, and our relationship quickly blossomed. Together, we achieved many things: good jobs, unforgettable moments, and a house that became our refuge, the result of years of effort and dedication. Life seemed perfect. Sophia was my safe harbor, and I believed our love was proof against any adversity. I invested time and energy in renovating our house, making it a cozy and personalized home, a place where we could create memories and build our future. Each wall painted, each piece of furniture carefully chosen, represented our commitment and shared vision of a tomorrow together. However, over time, small disagreements began to arise. Sophia suggested that we move in together to make our routine easier and further consolidate our relationship. Although I had some apprehensions, I agreed to the proposal, believing that this new phase would strengthen our bond. Little did I know that this decision would trigger a series of events that would transform our lives forever. At first, it seemed that everything was going well. Sophia brought her things into the house, and her friends came to help with the move. However, the first unpleasant surprise came when they started discussing redecorating the house. "Carlos, these curtains need to be replaced. They are so dull," said one of her friends, eliciting laughter from everyone but me. I watched in silence as they moved furniture and suggested changes without even consulting my preferences. It was as if I were a spectator in my own home. The discomfort grew within me, but I didn't want to spoil Sophia's joy. "Let's give it a chance. Maybe it'll be good," I thought, trying to convince myself that everything would work out. The changes in the decor continued, and the house that I had renovated with such care began to feel strange, as if it no longer belonged to me. Sophia seemed increasingly comfortable, while I felt increasingly displaced. This feeling of invasion and disrespect reached its peak when, one day, I came home and found my belongings piled in a corner, replaced by objects chosen by Sophia's friends. "What's going on here?" I asked, trying to control my anger. "We're just adding a feminine touch to the house, Carlos. Relax, you'll love it," Sophia said, smiling as if nothing was wrong. But something was very wrong. I realized that my voice and opinions were being silenced, and my house, which should have been a refuge, was becoming an emotional battlefield. The tension increased every day, and the feeling of betrayal and disrespect grew within me. I felt like I was losing control of my own life, and the person I loved seemed oblivious to my suffering. I was trapped in a nightmare, unable to find a way out. What once was a solid and loving relationship was turning into a constant source of anguish and conflict. How will the seemingly stable relationship face unexpected challenges? What will happen when the narrator realizes that his concerns and feelings are being ignored? Find out in the next chapter how Carlos will deal with these invasive changes in his life and the space he calls home. If you like following stories, reports, and surprising revelations seen on Reddit, subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. The invasion of my privacy and choices was brutal and sudden. Each object that I had chosen with such care was replaced by something that did not reflect my personality or taste. My refuge, the house I had spent years renovating, was being taken over by a style that was completely foreign to me. Why does no one ask me what I want? I thought, feeling a lump in my throat. One night, after a long day at work, I came home and found my things piled up in boxes in the garage. "What's happening here?" I asked, my voice trembling with anger and frustration. "We're just reorganizing to make the house cozier," Sophia replied with a smile that seemed oblivious to my pain. Her friends were laughing and chatting animatedly, completely ignoring my presence. I felt like an intruder in my own home. The arguments over the decoration continued, and every attempt I made to express my discontent was met with indifference or laughter. "Carlos, you're overreacting." "They're just furniture," said one of Sophia's friends, minimizing my feelings. But to me, they weren't just furniture. It was my life, my story, my space that was being disrespected. The breaking point came one weekend. Sophia decided it would be a good idea to paint the living room walls a color I hated. "Let's paint it bright yellow, it'll look beautiful," she said, already buying the paints and organizing a painting party with her friends. "I don't want that color in my living room," I declared, trying to stay calm. "I spent months choosing every detail of this house, and you're destroying everything. You're being selfish, Carlos." "This house is ours now. We need to do things together," Sophia retorted, not realizing that I had never been consulted about these changes. The conflict escalated quickly. I found myself shouting something that had never happened before. "This is disrespectful, Sophia. You can't just do whatever you want and ignore my opinions." Her friends looked shocked, but they didn't stop painting, ignoring my distress. Tired and emotionally drained, I went to the basement, my last refuge where the memories of the original house were still intact. There, I sat in an old chair and looked at the walls that still reflected my taste and choices. Tears came, silent and heavy. I felt powerless and betrayed. The woman I loved and her friends had taken everything I held dear, and I didn't know how to get it back. The situation continued to worsen in the following weeks. Sophia brought more and more items, ignoring my pleas to stop. I tried to adapt, tried to find a middle ground, but every attempt seemed to sink me further into a sea of despair. My house, which should have been a symbol of our love and partnership, was becoming a monument to my loss of identity and control. How will the narrator deal with the invasion of his preferences in his own home? How will he face the growing sense of disrespect and betrayal? Keep reading to discover Carlos's next steps in his struggle to reclaim his space and dignity. After weeks of frustration and conflict, I decided to organize a party to celebrate the completion of the house renovations. I wanted it to be a chance to show my family and friends what I had done and, in a way, to reaffirm my place in that space. Sophia seemed excited about the idea, and her friend helped with the preparations, decorating the house with an elegance that seemed superficial given the forced changes. The party started with a lively atmosphere. My parents and siblings arrived first, bringing gifts and compliments for the house. Old friends showed up, and the sound of soft music and laughter echoed through the rooms. For a moment, I managed to forget the turmoil of the past months. Sophia was radiant, smiling and chatting with everyone as if the recent problems had never existed. As the evening progressed, more guests arrived. Sophia introduced me to a new group of friends I had not met before. Among them was a guy named Lucas, who seemed a bit uncomfortable. "This is Lucas, Sophia's friend," said one of her friends, smiling enigmatically. There was something strange in the way Lucas avoided my gaze, but I tried to ignore it, focusing on being a good host. At one point, I decided to make a toast. I stepped onto a small platform we had set up in the garden and asked for everyone's attention. "I want to thank you all for being here tonight. This house is a symbol of our hard work and the love we have for each of you. Thank you for being part of this." Everyone applauded and toasted, but I noticed that Sophia was strangely distant, whispering something to Lucas. When I returned to the crowd, I saw that he was about to leave. "I'm leaving," he said evasively. Sophia tried to stop him, but he seemed determined. Suddenly, one of Sophia's friends, visibly drunk, started laughing loudly. "You really didn't know?" she asked, addressing me. "Lucas isn't just a friend. They have a history together." The laughter drowned out the music, and an uncomfortable silence settled. "What are you talking about?" I asked, trying to control the tremor in my voice. Sophia turned pale while Lucas tried to leave quickly. "Lucas, wait!" I shouted, running after him. He stopped but didn't look me in the eye. "I didn't want you to find out like this," he said, his voice low and full of guilt. "Find out what?" My voice came out louder than I intended. "Sophia, what's going on?" She began to cry, her friends trying to console her. "Lucas and we had an affair," she admitted through sobs. "It was before we moved in together. I thought it was over, but I was wrong." The revelation hit like a bomb. The shock and pain mixed in a storm of emotions. "You cheated on me all this time?" I asked, feeling my heart shatter. Her tears seemed useless in the face of the magnitude of the betrayal. "I'm sorry, Carlos. I really am. But I love you. That never changed," she said, her voice broken. The commotion attracted everyone's attention at the party. My friends and family looked on in disbelief while Sophia's friends tried to downplay the situation. "Everyone makes mistakes," said one of them, as if that could erase the pain I felt. Lucas stood still, looking petrified by guilt. "I didn't want it to be like this," he murmured, but his words meant nothing to me at that moment. My mind was in chaos. I needed to get out of there, needed air, needed a moment to understand what had just happened. Without saying another word, I pushed through the crowd and ran to the basement, my last refuge. I closed the door behind me and let the tears flow freely. My world was falling apart, and I didn't know how to pick up the pieces. As I stayed in the basement, I could hear the party continuing above me, as if nothing had happened. The pain and betrayal were overwhelming. I felt betrayed not only by Sophia, but by everyone who knew and didn't tell me. The trust one had in my relationship and the people around me was irreparably broken. A few minutes, or maybe hours, passed until someone knocked gently on the door. It was my best friend, Marcos. "Carlos, can I come in?" His voice was calm and supportive. "Yes," I replied, trying to hold back the tears. He entered and sat beside me. "Man, I don't even know what to say. This is a mess. But I'm here for you," he said, placing a comforting hand on my shoulder. "Thank you, Marcos. I don't know what to do now," I confessed, feeling more lost than ever. "First, you need time to process all this. Don't make any hasty decisions," he advised. "Let's go upstairs and end the party. You don't have to go through this alone." With a lump in my throat, I followed Marcos back to the living room. The party was clearly over, with people whispering and avoiding my gaze. My parents approached, offering their silent support. "Carlos, we're here for you," they said, hugging me. Sophia was in a corner, surrounded by her friends, still crying. I couldn't help but feel a wave of anger. She had destroyed our trust and our relationship, and nothing she said could change that. How will the narrator react to the revelation of betrayal and the overwhelming pain he feels? What will be his next steps in dealing with this devastating situation? Keep reading to find out how Carlos will face this crisis and find a way to move forward. The party that was supposed to be a celebration quickly turned into a nightmare. After the shocking discovery of the affair between Sophia and Lucas, I felt like the ground had opened up beneath my feet. The anger and sadness consumed me, but I knew I had to face the situation. With the room still full of guests, the tension was palpable. I decided I wouldn't leave things like this. I needed answers, and I needed everyone to know the truth. I returned to the main room where Sophia was still surrounded by her friends, seeking comfort. Lucas stood near the door, visibly uncomfortable. The music had been turned off, and the murmuring of the guests created a heavy atmosphere. I walked to the center of the room, my steps firm, and asked for silence. All eyes turned to me. "I have something to say," I began, my voice laden with emotion. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration, but it turned into something completely different. I found out that Sophia, my girlfriend, was cheating on me with Lucas. The shock swept through the room. Some guests gasped, others murmured in disbelief. Sophia tried to approach me, but I raised my hand to stop her. "Please, let me finish," I said, feeling the anger bubbling again. "I trusted you, Sophia. I believed we had something real, something solid. And now all of that has been destroyed by betrayal. And it's not just a betrayal to me, but to everyone who believed in our relationship," I continued, my voice firm. Lucas tried to intervene. "Carlos, I'm sorry. It was a mistake, a big mistake." "A mistake? You think you can just apologize and everything will be fine? You don't understand the depth of the pain you've caused." I shot back, feeling the frustration build. Sophia started crying again. "Carlos, I was confused. I was trying to figure out who I am. I made a mistake, but that doesn't mean I don't love you." "Love? You call this love?" I asked, incredulous. "Loving someone means respecting them, being honest. And you did the exact opposite." Sophia's friends began to try to intervene, minimizing the situation. "Carlos, everyone makes mistakes. You can't end everything over a slip-up," said one of them, trying to justify Sophia's actions. "A slip-up? This wasn't a slip-up. It was a deliberate choice, a conscious decision to betray my trust," I retorted, feeling the anger boiling inside me. The tension in the room was overwhelming. My parents and siblings stood by my side, offering their silent support. Marcos approached again, placing a hand on my shoulder. "Carlos, you don't have to deal with this alone. We're all here for you," he said, his tone supportive. I looked at Sophia and Lucas, feeling the mix of pain and anger consume me. "You too ruined something beautiful. And now you have to face the consequences of your actions," I declared, my voice firm. I decided it was time to end the party. I apologized to everyone for this mess. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration, but it turned into a disaster. "I thank you all for being here, but I think it's best to end it here," I said, trying to keep my composure. The guests began to leave, offering words of support as they passed me. Sophia stood frozen, looking lost and helpless. Lucas left quickly, avoiding eye contact. My parents and siblings stayed by my side until everyone had gone. Finally, the house was empty. I sat on the sofa, feeling the weight of the night fall on me. Sophia approached, trying to speak once more. Carlos, please, can we talk? Not now, Sophia. I need time to think, to process all this, I replied, trying to hold back the tears. She nodded, looking defeated. I understand. I'll give you the space you need. When Sophia left, I felt a mix of relief and pain. Marcos, who had been by my side the whole time, sat next to me. You did the right thing, man. Now it's time to take care of yourself, he said, his voice full of compassion. That night, I slept little. Sophia and Lucas's betrayal replayed in my mind like an endless nightmare. The words and moments of that party continued to echo, preventing me from finding peace. I woke up the next day, still feeling the weight of the previous night's events. I knew I had to make difficult decisions that would change my life forever. But I also knew I wasn't alone. I had the support of my family and friends, and that gave me the strength to move forward. What will the narrator do in response to the betrayal and overwhelming pain he feels? What will be his next steps to deal with this devastating situation? Keep reading to find out how Carlos will face this crisis and find a way to move forward. After the public explosion, the party was practically over. The guests left, leaving behind murmurs and looks of pity. I felt a mix of relief and sadness as I watched everyone go. Sophia, surrounded by her friends, cried inconsolably. I decided to retreat to the basement, the only place where I could find some peace. There, I sat in an old chair and began to process everything that had happened. The pain of the betrayal and public humiliation was overwhelming. I tried to find some logic, some explanation that could ease the anguish I felt. Minutes later, I heard footsteps coming down the stairs. It was my brother, Rafael. Carlos, are you okay? He asked, the concern evident on his face. No, Rafael. I'm not okay at all. This is all a nightmare, I replied, my voice choked with emotion. I know, brother. But you need to make a decision about what to do. You can't keep living with this distrust and pain, Rafael advised. You're right. I need time to think, but one thing is certain, I can't stay with Sophia after all this. Rafael nodded. We're all here to support you, no matter what you decide. But remember, you deserve more than this betrayal. Will the narrator be able to find a solution to this complex situation? How will he deal with the decision to end a relationship and its consequences? Keep reading to find out. The next day, Sophia returned home accompanied by her friends. They entered with defiant expressions, clearly prepared for a confrontation. Carlos, we need to talk, Sophia began, her voice firm but tinged with desperation. There's nothing more to say, Sophia. You betrayed my trust and humiliated me. It's time for you to leave, I replied, trying to stay calm. I'm not going anywhere. This house is mine too, she protested, her friends nodding in agreement. At that moment, my brothers and a few friends entered the room. If you need help packing her things, we're here, Rafael said, making it clear that I wasn't alone. The tension in the room was palpable. Sophia, let's do this as peacefully as possible. Pack your things and go. I don't want you here anymore, I said, my voice firm but filled with sadness. With the help of my brothers and friends, we began to pack Sophia's things. Her friends tried to intervene but were quickly pushed back. Within a few hours, all her belongings were ready to be taken away. Sophia's anger and frustration were evident, but she knew she had no other option. How will the girlfriend react to this final decision? What will happen next now that the relationship is over? Find out in the next chapter. Involvement of the girlfriend's parents. We decided to take Sophia's things to her parents' house. I knew it would be a difficult encounter, but it was necessary. When we arrived, I knocked on the door, and Sophia's father opened it, his expression changing from surprise to concern. Mr. Silva, we need to talk, I began, trying to keep my composure. Of course, Carlos. What's going on? He asked, looking at the packed items. Sophia had an affair. I found out last night. I'm ending our relationship and bringing her things back, I explained, my voice trembling slightly. Mr. Silva's face turned pale. This can't be true. Sophia, what do you have to say? He asked, turning to his daughter. Dad, it was a mistake. I was confused, but Carlos is overreacting, she said, tears streaming down her face. Mrs. Silva came out of the kitchen, her expression of shock quickly turning to anger. How could you do this, Sophia? "What's happening to you?" she asked, clearly devastated. "The mistake was yours, Sophia. You betrayed Carlos's trust and destroyed your relationship," Mr. Silva said, his voice heavy with disappointment. How will Sophia's family deal with this revelation? What will happen to Sophia now that the truth is out? Find out in the next chapter. 2 days later, Sophia and her best friend showed up at my house, shouting and cursing. "How could you tell my parents everything? You ruined my life," she screamed, pounding on the door. I stepped outside to meet them in the yard, my patience already worn thin. "You did this to yourself, Sophia. I just told the truth." Her best friend, Clara, joined the argument. "You had no right to do that. You're just being petty and vindictive." Petty and vindictive? I was betrayed and humiliated. "You have no idea what I'm going through," I replied, my voice filled with anger. The situation quickly escalated, with shouting and accusations from both sides. Finally, I lost my temper. "Enough. Leave my property now, or I'll call the police," I threatened. Sophia and Clara backed off but continued shouting as they left. The anger and frustration within me were almost unbearable, but I knew I had to stand firm. What will happen now that the situation is even more tense? How will the narrator deal with the pressure and ongoing conflict? Keep reading to find out. With the support of my friends and family, I began to rebuild my life. I found strength within myself that I didn't know I had. I dedicated myself to work and found new activities that brought me joy. I decided to redecorate the house, this time in my own way. Each change I made was a step towards recovery and overcoming the past. Slowly, I started to feel that the house was my home again, a place of comfort and safety. The healing process was long and painful, but over time, I learned to trust again. I made new friendships and began to go out more, opening myself up to new experiences and opportunities. Sophia's betrayal left scars, but also made me stronger and more resilient. What other stories of resilience and overcoming will be shared? Keep reading our channel for more inspiring stories. If you enjoyed following this story, don't forget to leave a like. And if you want to follow more stories, reports, and surprising revelations seen on Reddit, subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. It will be a pleasure to have you with us.